And we're live. Hello, welcome, good afternoon. I would say welcome to Books and Beer, but that wouldn't be true because we're not officially using the branding today because this is an sort of even more off topic than
There are
general chat.
books and there is beer.
There are books and there is beer. Here we go. Welcome.
Guys.
And we're both here to celebrate the release of Steve's new book, I, Vigilante.
Woohoo!
I know. It's very exciting. It feels like we've done lots of these this year, to be
Yeah,
honest.
well, you and I are both quite prolific, and we always have books coming out and some together. So we do them quite often.
Yeah, absolutely. And
And
keep
why
them going.
not?
And why not? And why not? Let's have a look at the cover of this one. And whilst we do that, you can tell us, Steve, what it's all about.
Well, quickly, I just want to say thank you, Luke, for having me on the show. And also a quick shout out to my good friend, John Bowen, who designed these covers for me many years ago now. And finally seeing the light of day. So thank you, John. So this is I, Vigilante. The main character is the wonderful Alexandria Ridley, Alex Ridley. Anyone who's read any of my Hiram Kane books will know Alex from her debut in the series back in 4.5 years ago in the Condor Prophecy. And I've always felt that she is such a strong, powerful lady and a great character. So I think she deserved her own series. And it's been on the cards for years, at least 3 years. But other books and life, everything gets in the way. But finally, I managed to get around to completing that book, and the second book is also ready to go. I'm really pleased with this one. It's very fast paced. There's some amazing action set in Mumbai, India, a city you and I both really like. I'm just relieved to finally get this one over the line.
Absolutely. I remember first seeing these covers, which was about 3 years ago, and you were like, "Yeah, these 3 books. I've got the idea now. I'm in the writing process. Couple of months, they'll be out.
Well, there were some hiccups along the way for various reasons that.
Yeah, and you've done a lot of other books in the meantime. Let's be
Yeah,
fair.
well, these were supposed to be before our Kayla series, Kayla Stone series, and Kayla does appear in these books too. For anyone who's interested, Kayla is, whereas Alex Ridley was Hiram Kane's sidekick, Kayla Stone, Luke and I's character, is Alex Ridley's sidekick, which is all kind of fun. But so these books actually predate the Kayla books in chronological order, but they just came out later. But that's all right; doesn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely. People do that all the time. In fact, you released your Kane series out of order, technically, didn't you? Because you wrote one before or something.
Yeah,
like that. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, the Condor Prophecy was the first book I wrote in the Kane series. It was book 1, and it's now technically, if I really break it down, it's technically book 5 because it's officially book 3 in the series because Tiger Temple and Samurai Code are now books 1 and 2. But then I wrote the Golem of Prague, which predates all of those, and then I wrote the origin story Silent Night, which is set 20 years ago. So technically, Condor Prophecy is now book 5, but it is the first one I wrote.
Yeah, which is great. I think it's good that things are out of sync. Yeah. I have to say, I enjoyed reading this, and I jumped straight on it as soon as you sent me a copy over, like a week or so in advance of the release. And it was really interesting to see how you have written Kayla slightly differently to how I've written her. But I suppose that's natural over the course of time.
Really interesting to see how
a bit of feedback there.
You have written Kayla slightly differently.
There you go. I think that stopped. It was, how sort of she, and I think that's true in a way because she will have changed over the course of those 3 books. She will have become more or less confident. Things will have happened to her that have made her, braver or more timid or whatever the thing might be. And it was nice to sort of see her from a different perspective, from your perspective, a couple of years prior to my sort of taking the mantle with writing her.
If I'm being honest, there's not a perfect connection because this book was written a couple of years ago. and she wasn't really even Kayla Stone then, and she had a different name.
No, we changed her name, didn't
Yeah,
we?
so it's just the logistics of it. I mean, it's almost most I imagine wouldn't even be able to tell, but there is some character difference there. But
yeah,
I don't think it's a problem at all.
I think it works. I think it works because she talks about Ridley in the books that we have. Ridley's obviously a bit of a older sister sort of person to her in this book, or someone she aspires to be and looks up to, and for right or for wrong. I think that's a sort of play with in this book. Actually,
yeah, she admires.
Should she be hanging around with someone like Ridley? You know.
Yeah. Well, she owes her a lot. Kayla was rescued by Ridley in the Shadow of Kailash book, so she looks up to her, and we never know if she would have escaped herself anyway from the human trafficking organization. She may well have escaped, but we'll never know. But so she owes Ridley. She owes Ridley, and Ridley is reluctant to have her around because it's dangerous. But she realizes the value of having another tough woman with her to help her in her vigilanteism. Is that a word?
Vigilanteism. It should be. No,
well, it is now. It's been said.
No, absolutely. I'm interested because we wrote Set Him Free, which is the sequel to ours, which again, the timeline wasn't perfect because that's set before these books, sort of probably a month or so before these books sort of take over. What was it like for you to obviously go for Set Him Free, take a very short trip to Mumbai? What was it like to have this longer sort of exploration into the city?
Well, I love it because it's a city I love, and spent not that long there, a few days.
Yeah, that's all you need. I think,
which is actually enough.
Yeah.
Yes, it's enough. You need a break after that. And in Set Him Free, it was just a real kind of literally a 10,000 word race around the city. So you couldn't get in enough of the highlights of the place. So being able to spend 60,000, 65,000 words in the city, you can use more iconic landmarks, go to more places. And I just, you can just dig a bit deeper, which is great for story, but also good for to reveal the city a little bit.
Yeah, there's a couple of things in there I really liked. You mentioned just some really cool places that I would think, oh yeah, I remember that one. The various different districts of the city, the various different bars. Leopold's had a mention as well, which was always one of my favourite hangouts. When I
think I mentioned Leopold's in a book that wasn't even in Mumbai. I liked it so much.
It just became a place. Yeah, I like it. It's nice to see that sort of come back in this story. I thought it was a really good
we have so many. You and I have so many books in Mumbai and India. We should definitely go on a road trip, on a field trip.
I was thinking that earlier today. I was like, oh yeah, it's calling.
I've been missing Asia a lot lately.
Sorry?
I've been missing Asia a lot. Most guys know that I love Asia, and yes, I love Mexico too. But my heart belongs in Asia, and I just miss it so much.
Yeah, it will happen. We'll have to do it. We'll do like a writing retreat in somewhere and come back with another story set in that.
I don't think it would be in Mumbai. It's not relaxed enough to do a writing retreat.
And I think we've done that now. I sort of feel like that thing is done. To an extent, for now. I'm not saying I wouldn't.
Well, there's a scene in Vigilante in McLeod Ganj. I think it's this book, which is near Dharamsala in the north, just up in the Himalayas, which is where the Dalai Lama lives.
Okay.
The Dalai Lama's main temple is in McLeod Ganj, and yes. I love that.
I'm just took me a while to think about that because that's not how it's written. Like that's when I read it, it's pronounced in a funny way or an unusual way. Am I saying it's got like a J in it and lots of other?
Yeah, McLeod. It's spelled a few different ways.
Yeah,
McLeod Ganj, the J on the end. Sometimes it's two words, sometimes it's one word. But of course, Ridley and Kayla have a beer at the McClough rooftop bar, which I've frequented several times. But that small town there is a brilliant place for a writing retreat. It's views of the Himalayas, very peaceful because it's the where all the Tibetan monks who have to escape from Tibet because of the Chinese. That's where they all live around there. So it's really a nice place.
That sounds fantastic. Let's sort that out in the years to come as we're able to travel a little bit more easily and these sorts of things. Yeah. We've got a couple of comments of people. First one, Alison, of course. Hello, Alison. I'm drinking one of your beers as well. Here we are.
Hello, Alison.
The gift that keeps
Thanks for
giving.
the great review, by the way.
There we are.
How is that?
It's nice. It's a light one. Like quite a pale beer.
I've got my old favourite, which is this giant Corona.
You have two of those and you can't see straight, you know. Looks like medicine. Oh, and I've got to say, actually, Alison, I put my my latest book that I've not even written yet. In fact, I've written a few thousand words, about 3,500 words. And I put it up for pre-order yesterday to sort of spur me on, and Alison's already pre-ordered it. So thank you so much for that. Someone's just told me to put my volume up, so I will do so. I really struggle with the volume on this system, and I assume this is the same person, Facebook user, and that's the person that told me to turn my volume up. So hello. For some reason, it's not recognising who you are at the moment.
That's right.
Oh, is that right? Ah, cool.
Yeah.
But I've put my volume up now. Thank you for saying that. If just whenever if the volumes aren't right on this system, it's quite hard to tell it unless I'm at home and watching. So yeah, no, it's great. So this one, obviously they've travelled down from Kailash, which is in Tibet. Am I right? For the previous book, they've gone to Mumbai and had this whatever happens in the book, but that only sort of sets us up for the following two then, which I know you're sort of working on releasing relatively quickly after this.
Yeah, well, book two is basically ready. I've got a couple of I can't say editors. They're good friends who are having a good look at it and helping with feedback. But I've finished it. It's finished. I'm just getting like some last minute edits on that. And I haven't started writing book 3 yet, but I'm starting that on Monday, literally on Monday, November 1st for NaNoWriMo.
Oh, cool.
Which for those who don't know, NaNoWriMo is an acronym for National Novel Writing Month. And my very first book, my debut, I Have Lived Today, I wrote during NaNoWriMo, which is a 30-day challenge to write 50,000 words in a month. And I'm planning to do 2 books in November in NaNoWriMo. I'm doing the book 3 of this series, which is Salvation, and I'm writing the next Hiram Kane book. I'm hoping to write both in 30 days. So wish me luck for that. But
I think that's pretty tall order.
Yeah.
I'm sure if anyone can, it's you with 20-something books to your name already.
Yeah, I think it's about 24 now, 3 or 4. I'm not sure exactly. It's about the same as my IQ, whatever that is. So yeah, so this story is essentially really the Alex Ridley is the main character, but actually the nemesis in this book is the Korean gangster Do Hyun Kim. He was the guy who kidnapped her in the shadow of Kailash and tried to sell her to the human traffickers, but she escaped. And there's, as you can see on the cover there's when prey becomes predator. So you can imagine there's got to be another character involved, and that's the Korean gangster. And he's after his revenge. And it just all comes down to a kind of a big showdown in Mumbai. It's a bit of a chase across India, and then in Mumbai, and you know, it's Do Hyun Kim is a brilliant character himself. I mean, if I had 10 pairs of hands, I think he deserves a story of his own. But that all depends on whether he survives or not, I suppose. Yeah,
I do like him as a nemesis. What I quite liked is that he was an outsider from this first book. Like a lot of the gangsters there are sort of the homegrown Bombay mafioso types that you'd anticipate in a story set there. But him as like another outsider coming in adds like another dimension. Actually, it's not just about this city. No. It's not just about this place.
Yeah, there's so much more you could write about him, but then it would get away from the story. But he is a disgraced Korean soldier. He was in the army, in Korean army, and disgraced for various, faux pas, and he basically got chased out of Korea. So he ends up, like so many criminals do, that ends up in Mumbai, like Lim Barber, our favourite.
Yes.
And yeah, so he just gets involved, and that's how he's in the story, because he becomes basically a human trafficker essentially, and a gun runner. I think, is that what you call him? An arms trader kind of. So yeah, he ends up in Ridley's path, and it's a really good battle between them. I don't mean just in a fight. There are fights, but I mean it's like a game of cat and mouse. One's preying on the other, then tables get turned and all that kind of stuff. And Kayla's there in the background helping out where she can as well. So,
do you find it as a writer like a bit more relieving to write Ridley on her own? Because when Ridley's with Kane has got this very like calming effect. He is a reluctant. He's quite reluctant in conflict, isn't he? You know, as a character, he wants to. He doesn't want to be in the conflict, but the conflict finds him, and he finds every way diplomatically that he can sort of get away with it. Whereas I think that Ridley is much more fiery, much more, I'll just kick his head in, sort of attitude.
Yeah, on the cover, you can see Ridley's holding a gun. Now, anyone who's read a Kane book will know that Ridley and Kane both hate guns. It's I do too, and it's kind of a little personal thing. It's my little message in my stories. I don't like guns, but the reality is, if you're a vigilante and you're taking down very powerful gangsters, and actually in this story, that the traffickers were being sold to Chinese, dodgy Chinese military people. So if you aren't prepared to do what you need to do, i.e., use a gun, you're not gonna win. So Ridley has changed as a character from the Kane book. She's had to become this actual proper warrior now. And I'd hope this isn't a bit of a spoiler for a future book, but you and I talked about it yesterday. Kane is changing, Ridley has changed, and at some point I imagine a book where they actually kind of are rivals. And I think that might be the next book, one Kane book, and that's something I've been thinking about for a couple of years. Obviously, I need to get the other books done first, but yeah, Ridley has changed, and she's now capable of anything to get the job done. And we all need someone like that in our lives. And
you do see that in this book, actually. She sort of almost loses control a couple of times, doesn't she? You know. Yeah. She almost loses touch of what is too far, and that's exactly nice in a.
I've tried to show that, and that actually, as the series progresses, that line gets finer and finer, until perhaps crosses. You know, she's always been a bit flawed. Anyone who has read those Hiram Kane books, they'll know she's troubled. She's had a troubled past, and the stuff she gets into now is really bringing that past back into the future, or into the present, I should say. And she's flawed, but deep down she's a good person who only wants the best for everybody. Hence, she's become a vigilante, because we all wish we could do more, and sometimes we get let down by the system. The system doesn't help us, so some people just have to take charge, and that's what Ridley's doing in these books, and Kayla does in our Kayla books.
Yes, exactly. It's a nice sort of message in a way, isn't it? I mean, whilst we're not sort of advocating becoming a vigilante yourself, we're advocating do what's right. Follow the path that you stand for, and those sorts of things. I think is sort of the message more. So Yeah,
and it's just this. Ridley felt she had no choice. She couldn't stand by and watch the things happening that had happened to her, to other people. So she just stepped up and become the person so many people have needed.
Yeah, absolutely. So where do they go on to then? Can you reveal the locations of the following two books?
Yeah, I don't think that's the problem. So at the end of this book, they learn some information of where, because there's a book 2 and 3, it's not a surprise that Ridley survives this this book. And at the end of the book, they get information that they thought they'd won. They thought they'd taken down the trafficking ring, but of course they learn that no, it's elsewhere. So they end up going to a city I loved. I spent some time there with Leslie a couple of years ago, Milan. They go to Milan in Italy, which is another brilliant city. I don't know if you can manage to get the cover of that one. I should have thought of this earlier, but
no, not easily.
No, that's fine. But it goes to Milan, which is such a fantastic city with all the history and the architecture there. And I don't mind saying that Ridley probably survives that book and goes into the third book, which is.
I think it's fair to assume that Ridley will survive them.
Yeah. They go to Marrakesh in Morocco, which is such a fantastic city for tourists. But of course, it's a bit shady there as well. Dodgy things happen. So I feel like those three. I mean, I've already got book 4 planned in my head, which we've talked about, which could be a nice jolly up with our mate Kevin down in Spain.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, no problem saying where they're going to go next.
No, I like that. I think you've got a good sort of spread there because you've gone from Asia to Europe to Africa, or Northern Africa, I suppose.
I tend to do that.
Yeah, so that was purposeful to set a
absolutely. And if these books do well enough to continue the series, then they'll continue internationally as we want to do in our books.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure they will. The first one is a great book. I've not read the second, and the third one is still in production. But I look forward to reading that.
Yeah, I should be writing the first words on Monday morning.
Yeah. Let's have a quick look for the first words on Monday morning. Wow, you can keep us up to date with your progress over the course of time. Just a little bit of pressure. Nothing like a bit of pressure to get you going, does there? You know. Milan, among other things, is home to Alfa Romeo, my old race cars. Nice, yes. And Alison says that she loves a great gangster. And someone says hi to me and you. I'm not sure why it's not showing me who you are today, guys. I'm sorry. I think it might be because I'm using Steve's Facebook group rather
Hi,
than
Steve and Luke. I think that's Stephen Taylor there.
Oh, does it tell you who it is? Right.
Yeah, well, I'm looking on Facebook as well.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, fair enough.
That's my mum. Hello, mum.
That one. That's your mum.
Hi, Steve and Luke. I think Leslie's in somewhere too.
I saw you say hello to Leslie. Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, love.
Yeah. I'm having a look over here as well now. But yeah, no, that sounds really good. I'm going to get distracted by what's going on, and I hope it doesn't start playing you back at me like it did to.
Well, I've got a soundtrack of cockerels across the street.
I know.
The neighbours have got a chicken coop on their rooftop, which is. If I wasn't vegan, I would probably have gone and done something about those chickens. But
I mean, at this time of the morning, what's it, 11 a.m. for you? That's not too bad. But
yeah, but trust me, they were going at 4 o'clock this morning too.
Yeah.
Hence, houses for sale.
Yeah, we were talking about this, weren't we? But no, but that place. You've written several books in that place now, haven't you? Over the course of the last couple of years, or 5 years, or something.
2, yeah. The Feathered Serpent I wrote, which is a Hiram Kane story that's set in San Miguel de Allende, which has got quite a few of my mates in the story as well. I had great fun chopping off one of my mates' hands in a pyramid. You can only you can do it in real life if you want, but it wouldn't go down as well as if it was fictional.
People tend to get a bit precious about body parts, don't they?
Yeah, well, actually and Day of the Dead, the Dia de los Muertos festival is this Sunday, I think. And I've written a book with my friend Elena called Day of the Dead. So yeah, I've written, and that's a brilliant festival. It's it's not, people kind of confuse it with Halloween, but it's not Halloween. Nothing to do with it. It's just coincidentally around the same time.
Right.
But I it's a great city, very evocative, and a perfect place to set stories. But so is anywhere else.
Yeah. I mean, was it going sort of taking that and steering back towards the Ridley books, was it a challenge for you to go away from the archaeological sort of side of writing? Because I know that's been a passion of yours. You've got a degree in an archaeological related subject. You know, you then went in to write the sort of Kane books that are very much of that action adventure sort of ilk, aren't they? This one has got no history, no ancient tribes or artifacts or anything like that involved. Was that a challenge, or did you?
Well, I mean, it's a good question. Not really. I've been trying to make the Kane books a little bit more thriller-esque. Anyway, I mean, they still take place in all those archaeological places like the pyramids and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But they have got a bit less adventure-y and a bit more thrillery.
At least guns and that sort of stuff.
I've tried to do that. Yeah. The gangsters, the terrorists are a bit more terrifying. So I guess the leap wasn't that much, and I think I guess from a marketing point of view, I think thrillers do better generally than those kind of action adventures. So it was something I needed to do, and I don't think the jump has been too difficult.
Do you find the research is less? Because I imagine I've never written a sort of archaeological adventure sort of story, but I imagine there's a fair amount that you've got to base it on either true events or the history of a place or something like this.
I would say less research, definitely, because when you're using real places and real historical moments and actual treasures or artifacts, you have to be pretty accurate. Whereas in a thriller like this, yes, I'm accurate with the locations, the street names and the views and that kind of stuff, and the culture. But in terms of dates, no, nothing's important really. So less research, a bit more freedom. So and I think that comes across in this book, but up to the readers to let me know about that.
I think it does, and I think considering it was your first it wasn't your first sort of play into this sort of change genre, because I know you've been, as you say, making your books more sort of thrillery consciously over the last little while. I don't think it misses anything. I read it not even thinking about that actually, and now thinking back, I don't think it misses any parts of what a classic thriller should be. Well,
thank you. That's a compliment. I take it. I do. I'm pretty confident about that too. I think I had quite a lot of help on this one with my mate Dusty Sharp, another great writer. He was quite influential in this story, and he knows the tropes and he's helped me out. So I mean, we're pretty confident that this hits all the right spots in the thriller genre.
Mm-hmm.
Time will tell.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I've as I say, I've read it and really enjoyed the story. Let's have another quick look at the comments, then we'll talk for about another 5, maybe 10 minutes, depending if we get any really pertinent questions we've got to jump into. I'm actually awake, noonish here. Can you tell me who that is, Steve?
That's Ray.
Oh, that's Ray. Excellent. And yes, Indiana Jones archaeological adventures are on the outs. Is that Ray as well? It may well be. Is that true? Do you think they're becoming less successful then, Ray? Is that if that is Ray? Do you think?
Yeah, I think that there are some people in the genre still doing really, really well, like Ernest Dempsey, Nick Thacker. Those guys are still doing really well, but they're so established that it's easier for them. But I think someone like me, who's less established and newcomers to it, I think it's more difficult for sure. Yeah, I don't know why. I think it's because, this is just a guess, and Ray makes a good point. I haven't thought about this. There hasn't been a great Indiana Jones type movie for a long time. Even in the movies, that doesn't happen. Like National Treasure, the National Treasure movies, they were so much fun, really good.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a Dan Brown, Da Vinci Code type, and they aren't as good as the first couple anyway. And Indiana Jones there hasn't been a new one for a long time. So the world of popular fiction and movies, that has moved away from that, hasn't it? It's more stuff like edgy vigilante stuff like Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So those are more popular at the moment.
I think sort of the big thing, or one of the big things, is like the sort of conspiracy thriller, isn't it, at the moment? You know.
Yeah.
And I think that's been on the rise for half a decade or so.
Yeah,
and
Bond,
Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is part of that move, I think.
James Bond is still going strong, and there are a lot of great spy thriller writers out there.
Yeah, yeah. I do wonder whether we're in the sort of archaeological thrillers, whether it's you'd run out of ideas because there's only sort of so many things. Don't you think there's only so many mysteries that people have heard of that have that thing? Do you I mean, would you ever run out of ideas in that way, or do you think you'd always find one?
There's 10,000 years of art history, which means
more, surely. You go back to the pyramids at 500 BC in some of your books, but whatever they were, you know.
10,000 years is a bit more than that, but no, there will never be a shortage of archaeological ideas to write stories about. Definitely not. But I have 100 myself, but I just don't have enough hands to write those stories. So, Dempsey, if you're listening,
let's hope so.
Yeah,
he has promised to come on Books and Beer at some point. I haven't got a date yet, but he has said he will.
I have a feeling he might be listening. Ernie, if you're there, say hello.
But
no, there's definitely a whole. Pardon.
I'm always listening. If that's actually him, that'd be amazing.
Let me see. Yes, that's Ernie. Hello, Ernie.
Hey, he is in. So yes, mate, we need to book your Books and Beer date on. I've got you listening.
100%.
100% needs to happen.
No,
that's fair enough. I get that. I understand that. Yeah, but I mean, what I think I meant by that is that you have to keep. The struggle would be to make that fresh each time, to have not just this character is going to find this thing in this place. I think maybe with a thriller like you've moved into here, because you've got the whole conspiracy, because you've got the whole government secret society, all those sorts of tropes that the thriller writers lean into in various different ways, it can be reinvented in a multitude of different ways to keep that sort of interesting and keep that sort of moving forwards.
That's true. And it's really, I mean, I think Ernie would agree. I think you'd agree. Any of the other writers listening would agree. The story is really just the side. Really, it's all about the characters. It's about the characters and their, their story, their character arc, as we say in the business. What happens in the story, or where the story is, or the MacGuffin, as we call it, the thing that they're trying to get after. Whether it's in this case, in Ridley's case. She wants justice. She wants to rescue the people. That's the target. But really, it's all about her emotional journey and the battle between her and the bad guys, the Korean gangster. That's like that's a kind of an old-fashioned duel, but set in the modern era. So character-driven is definitely is the way to keep things fresh. Doesn't really matter what's going on in the background, really.
Do you find that now, having moved on to a new character, then that you have got like you've got a fresh perspective because you've got a sort of new energy, that comes with writing a new character? You've written 5, 6, however many books in that Kane sort of dynasty. This is now something new. Has that sort of revitalized that writing spirit?
Kind of. But I could even say in the bigger picture, I had a year or so, like most of us in the pandemic, during that, basically the whole of last year, 2020 and the beginning of 2021, I didn't really have any drive for anything at all. It was just such a mad time for everybody, and still is. Yeah. But so I'm not saying we're out of that yet, of course not, but I feel as if things are changing and improving, and I just feel inspired for everything. And I think that's showing in my writing too. Somehow I didn't write very much for a year, but I've come back from it, and I feel like I'm a much better writer. I've learned more. I did a lot of editing work, so I learn more every time I do an editing job. I learn something, and that's coming into my writing. So I feel inspired, invigorated. So I can't wait to write the next Kane book. The last one, as you know, was a real struggle for me. That with Curses and Kings, that was a real struggle to get finished. I can't wait to start the next one, which is also on Monday.
Yeah.
Madly.
I don't know. I know there's a few writers listening to this now as well. And please let me know if you feel the same, because that will be massively reassuring. I always get a little bit of like worry, a little bit of anxiety before starting a new project, because I always think, will this be the one that I can't finish? Will this be the one that's really difficult? Will this be the one that isn't as good as the others, or that people, that someone, you know what I mean, that I just can't get to? Is that a normal sort of worry? Is that a normal anxiety that you feel?
I probably is. I personally, I worry that I don't worry if I can finish it. I just worry if it's any good, because I always have that imposter syndrome. I know there's some great writers out there. One of them's listening right now in the creepiest way possible, as he said.
And he says, "Yeah, if that's him." So I appreciate that. Thank you, mate.
Yeah. So, every book, even though I've tried my best and I've done the best I can, that might not be enough. So I think we all have a certain anxiety about our writing, because it's not only just our writing, it's actually our job. Because if we don't do it well, we don't get paid. So it's a serious concern, I think. Excuse me. Speaking of writers, I just F. Scott Fitzgerald wants to come inside. So
the writer formerly known as F. Scott Fitzgerald is stuck out on the patio. Who'd have thought it?
Hemingway's still out in the garden somewhere.
But no, that's great. That's reassuring to hear, and I think it is a scary prospect, isn't it? Because whilst it is a privilege, and I say that a lot, and it's a real great honor to be able to write these stories, there is a sort of responsibility and a fear and those sorts of things that are intertwined with that too.
I think that's normal in any job, especially in a creative job. We're making something from scratch basically every time we write a story, and even within that story, each chapter is a thing by itself. And if the chapter's crap, then somebody might not read the next one. So it is stressful. I'm not a martyr here, but I don't know if the readers. I'm a reader myself. Before I started writing, I took it for granted. Oh, that's another good book. That's a bad one. That's a good one. It's really stressful being a writer, because people are kind of relying on us to give them a good story. So it's difficult, but you're right. It's absolutely a privilege as well. And I can't imagine doing anything else really.
No, absolutely. I feel that completely. And yeah, just love it. You open your email and there's these messages saying, I love this book. I enjoyed this one. How did you come up with this idea? And that's a brilliant,
missed those ones.
A brilliant place to be. No, you didn't. Facebook user has just sent us a long message. I'm really annoyed that I can't see who you are today.
That's Ernie.
I'm sorry about this. Oh, thanks, Ernie. If you're worried about creating the best story possible and you're concerned it's not good enough, then you're doing it right. That will make sure you always give your readers your best. Good advice.
That's what he's talking about.
Yeah. But that is the point, isn't it? It's about giving readers the best. And I think it comes from sort of success. Like I've had people say my latest book, Riga, available now, is the best one of mine that they've read. Sorry?
Put it up on the screen.
I don't even know if I've got it saved on here. I'll have a look. There it is. There it is. It's a bit bigger than your one. There it is.
It's a great cover.
It is a great cover. But I've had people say that's the best one yet, and now I'm like, oh no. Partly I'm like, oh, great compliment, thanks so much, and have a moment, and then a moment later I'm like, oh, now I've got to write a better one still. That took ages.
But the truth is, I mean,
there you go.
In our jobs, if we didn't improve, and in life generally as well, I'm not getting all like woo-woo, but if we don't improve our lives every day, do something better, then we're not doing ourselves justice, and we're not doing our readers justice. We should improve. We have to improve. Every time we write even the next chapter should be better than the last one. So each book must be better by default.
Yeah, exactly. Alison asked an interesting question, which I've not thought about before, actually. What's the most difficult thing of writing a character from the opposite sex? And this is when you confess to us all that you really are a woman. And
More. I did have a shave.
yeah.
That is a good question. I think it would be more difficult if we were writing something very, very
like personal, like a literary
yeah,
thing.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, and I've known Ridley years. It's like I know her anyway. So I'm kind of just writing a friend's story, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I mean, yes, there are some terrible things in these stories. There is human trafficking, and the women are treated terribly. And obviously, I haven't experienced that. I don't know anyone personally that has experienced it. So I am taking a bit of a liberty, but I'm not getting into too much of the emotional detail of it. So I'm not trying to say I know about it, because I don't. I'm just touching around the edges of it as the industry, rather than the personal effects of it. A little bit, of course, but not. I'm not claiming to know about it, so I think I can get away with it.
Yeah, I don't think necessarily. I don't really think about it too much, to be honest. I just sort of think she's a character. If I get hurt, I hurt. I know what it's like to feel those emotions of grief, of pain, of whatever they might be from various things. And whilst a woman is different to a man, I can't imagine that those emotions are that different. Do you know what I mean? Like they're surely they're different in different people, but I can't imagine they're are massively different to what I would feel. So I just sort of go for it in that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I suppose it's a big difference. Men do get human trafficked as well, but in this particular case, it's because they're women why they're being trafficked for all the things that entails. So I wouldn't want to try to write as if I knew how that felt, because I obviously I could never know that, and how terrible and traumatic that would be. But that's why I don't get too much into the emotional side of it. Obviously, Ridley feels it more because she's a woman, and the victims are women. She feels it more than a man ever could. But in terms of the general hatred for the perpetrators, that's the same. Man or woman, still the same.
Yeah. No,
Fitz wants to go. Excuse me.
God, blooming difficult cat, isn't he? Undecisive. I'm going to read through this comment. I think it's probably Ernie again. Here's the good news, boys. If you write a bad one, or at least one that people like less than the previous one, you can always ask them why and make sure to do better on the next one.
Yeah, that's Ernie.
The next book. Yes, I think you're absolutely right.
Sage advice.
Indeed, sage advice. Yeah. There's always the next one. But no, I think, and that's what you're starting from Monday, as you say, the following one, and that's I Survivor. No, that was the previous one, wasn't it? Oh.
I Survivor was the prequel, which was the link between the Kane series and the Ridley. So this is I Vigilante, which is the statement. That's what she's become. I Guardian is, I don't know, it just sounded cool. It's just and book 3 is I Salvation.
Right. Nice. And they're all on pre-order now, aren't they? So you can go.
Yeah, they're all. So I should just do a little marketing here. Vigilante is now available only in KU. It had been wide on all stores for a few weeks until yesterday, and this morning exclusive to KU. But books 2 and 3, Guardian and Salvation, are now available internationally on all store fronts. Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Apple, Google, all those places, until about December 5th, I think, and then it will be exclusive to KU. And eventually they'll all only be in KU.
Yes, I see. So if you're a KU reader and you're watching this, you'll have to wait a little bit longer than someone who's happy just to buy that.
Well, no, it's still on pre-order on Amazon now.
But when you pre-order, you can't. That's not a KU thing, is it? You have to.
No, you have to buy it. You just have to buy it.
Yeah,
which is good. I like sales.
I explain this to my readers that actually, I did a similar thing with the release of my book, and I explained it to my readers in that actually that helps me get a little bit more money from people who are willing to pay a little bit more from it to get it a little bit earlier. Like I put my books in KU, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with borrowing them in that way, and I love the fact that you're still supporting me in that way. But if you want to get it a couple of weeks earlier and can afford to, then it really does. We really do appreciate getting that little bit extra to sort of help us make this a sustainable lifestyle. Because ultimately, that's it. Steve's got his flock of chickens to feed and his cats that keep having to be let in and out of the doors and all sorts of things. And yeah, I've got to stop relying on Alison to buy me pints. So there we go.
No, Luke's right, guys. Getting books in KU is fantastic, and I am a KU subscriber myself. I get most of my books in KU. It's a brilliant system. We do get paid, but we don't get paid up front. We get dribbles of money. So sales are sort of preferred, really. I think most of us would agree, but it doesn't matter. I'm a KU subscriber myself, so I couldn't ever say don't do that. That's perfectly acceptable, and we're grateful for any sales or any KU page reads. Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Right, let's sort of wrap things up. A couple more minutes, and then we will leave.
This to Ernie. Ernie, have you showing this to Ernie? Have you seen my cup?
What does it
my
say?
My Spurs tankard.
Oh, is it Spurs? Oh,
yeah.
God.
Dare is to do, or dare aspasir. Anyway, that's just for Ernie. Ernie's a football fan, so.
All right, there you go. Cool. Well, if you haven't already, follow the link on the screen. You'll find Steve's book there. Or I imagine if you just search "I Vigilante Stephen Moore" in your local Amazon store, maybe an easier way for you to do it, or whatever is good for you. Get that, have a look at it, and I'm absolutely certain you'll love it because I know that I did.
Thank you so much for saying so. I'm very pleased with the book. I think it's fantastic. You know, all fast-paced action, nice locations, some good characters, a really good bad guy or two, and a nice denouement to the story.
Absolutely. And we're doing this conversation again, I've realised, on Wednesday for Books and Beer.
Oh, I've got plenty of other crap to talk about. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So if you want to hear two idiots chatting for another hour about something you've heard them talk about before, 5 p.m. Wednesday afternoon.
I've got
via my YouTube or via my Facebook
after the show.
Yeah, I mean, we've got loads to talk about. We can talk about some of my books. We can talk about our
Kayla I've got books. A whole other series that I've never mentioned on your shows yet, so we can do Hemingway.
Yeah. We'll talk about other books and other beers, but we'll have a lovely time. I mean, we booked it in for this. That's why we booked it next week for this. Yeah. And then you said, "Oh, can we do one on the day?" And I thought, "Yeah."
And actually, you just wanted an excuse to have a beer. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's 5 o'clock for me, so it's
Friday night.
5 o'clock on a Friday. Like, yeah. It's not an excuse. I don't need you to give me an excuse, mate. I can do that anyway. Cool. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in.
Yes, guys,
I really appreciate this.
Thanks so much. And thanks to anyone who has bought or pre-ordered a copy. Much appreciated.
Yeah, dive straight in. It's a great
book. I hope you like it.
We will see you on Wednesday. Have a great weekend. See you soon.
Bye, guys.